Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala. Welcome everyone. I want to discuss an extremely important topic with you, inshallah. And the way I'm going to do it is basically I'm going to take you through a paper that I wrote, and then we're going to have a discussion, inshallah. If you have questions regarding that, you can write on the comment section, inshallah. Now, what the topic is about is extremely relevant to our civilization and our interaction as a civilization with the contemporary scientific enterprise that exists. So, from the Prophet ﷺ, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the world literally entered into a scientific era, and it has been like that for these centuries, literally. We have progressed more and more and more into science, and science is not some isolated enterprise there working on its own, but it has had now implications on us as through societies, through social structures, social theories, economic theories, and even our views on God, on morality. So it's become like a holistic philosophy of life, or you could say even a deen. It's a lifestyle now. The scientific lifestyle. It actually, plays an important part in how we view our own life, our existence, our view of the universe. So it's extremely important that we as Muslims know how to engage with the current scientific enterprise, which is secular, which is naturalistic, which has its own structure, and it's extremely successful. So, in order to do that, what I did was I took just one, one uh, field of life sciences, and I wrote this paper on that. So I'm going to take you to the paper. I'm going to be commenting. I'm going to take you through the text, but I'm going to be commenting. I need your attention because it's extremely important. The paper was actually published in Revolution and Science, which is one of the journals from the Islamic International University in Malaysia. So they're very well known for that, for this kind of research. They are the foremost in this integration of science and religion. So I just found it very relevant that I publish it there. So it would be very nice if I could have your attention, and I will share my screen. Now, let's go straight to the paper. The paper is called The Islamic and Western Methodological Approaches Towards the Study of Life Sciences. So what is going to happen is I'm going to take the Islamic approach. How did Muslims create science? And how is science being created right now? What are the differences? And when we understand the differences, you're going to see how we're going to use it in very important ways. So basically, just to give you a basic introduction, I think it's going to take me a few sessions to actually take you through the paper, but just to understand what I'm talking about. So life sciences, obviously, we know in the contemporary world, they are fertile ground for religion and science contentions, because talk about evolution. Did human beings come through a process of evolution of billions of years of matter, and then living beings, and then some sort of mammals, and then the human being, or were human beings instantaneously created by a miraculous command of God, instantaneously dropped on this planet? So there you go. That is contention. How do you deal with that? It could be argued that developments in evolutionary biology in the last 2 centuries contributed much to the rise of new atheism. So if you see, not all biologists are atheists, but all atheists do subscribe and do promote evolutionary biology. Why is that the case? On conducting a survey, what I found is that the study of life sciences within the Islamic scientific tradition never inclined towards atheistic thought. So I took the prominent opinions in biological thought, life sciences, the prominent names there, and I could see that there is nothing which is taking them towards atheistic leanings. Why is that? Now, a core characteristic of Islamic science was that rigorous scientific research was conducted within a predominantly Islamic intellectual milieu and a Tawhidic philosophical framework. This is very important to understand. As young Muslims, we need to understand we talk about Islamic science, but what made it Islamic? What made it Islamic was because if we understand that, we will be able to understand how can we navigate and interact with the scientific, enterprise that exists now, with the modern scientific revolution that we have now, which seems to be challenging our religious, affiliations. We will be able to better navigate our way through it. So The Islamic intellectual milieu and a Tawhidic philosophical framework existed in which science was produced. Now, the initial impetus to develop life sciences in the Muslim world came from religious injunctions, which is from the Quran and the Sunnah. Yes, this is very important to know. Many scientists like Al-Jahiz, Ibn Khaldun, etc., pursued a study of the biological world to understand divine wisdom at work in creation. This is extremely important that we know that science was developed in the Muslim world primarily because of the influence of the Quran. The Quran was literally pushing people towards science, it could be said, and because the various ayat that exist in the Quran talking about animals, talking about natural phenomena, talking about celestial phenomena, that is what inspired Muslims to develop this, to take it to the next level. If somebody is pointing towards something, then it is for you to then go there and take it to the next level, develop something out of that. So the necessary starting point of all scientific inquiry in the Islamic world was a recognition of divine unity that is demonstrated best by cosmic unity. Extremely important point that for Muslim scientists, they understood that the fact that Allah is one, divine unity, that means because the creator is one, the one who has designed everything is one, therefore there has to be a connection in everything that exists in the universe. Isn't that a beautiful idea? I think that's so beautiful that there has to be, because if I create something, let's say I wrote a book, that's my creation, so there has to be a coherence in everything that I wrote. So that's how they understood the Muslim scientists understood the universe like that. So now, because Islamic science sprang forth from an intellectual tradition rooted in religion and spirituality, the place of symbolism in all literature was inevitable. Now, this is also extremely important because we're talking about, okay, we talk about religion. Okay, so they were religious people, all right, and they were developing science. But then one of the most important things for you and me to understand in order to appreciate Islamic scientific works is that there was a lot of symbolism that was involved in this. And why that's important, I'm going to go into that. Why it's important for us to understand, because we are all educated in a very reductionist scientific, enterprise, a very reductionist scientific mode of thinking. Whenever we hear stuff like, symbolic talking, somebody talking about, something representing as a symbol of something else, we consider that that's not the place of science. That is the place of spirituality, Sufism, or that's not really science. So I want to draw your attention, inshallah, in the paper you'll be able to see that some of the most rigorous and important scientific works utilized symbolism in order to explain concepts. And it was done within the scientific tradition. They are developing science. It's not that they are developing some spiritual, some Sufi literature. That's very important for everyone to understand. The work of Muslim biologist Al-Jahiz is analyzed, and a comparison is drawn between the language employed by Muslim scientists and mystics in order to understand how Islamic perspectives of Tawheed and cosmic unity greatly intersected with and influenced the development of life sciences in the medieval Muslim world. So I take the example of Al-Jahiz, and I think even Ibn Khaldun. And then also I take the example of some of the Sufis, some of the mystics, and other, like religious people, one very important theologian. And I try to make the comparison that see the language of this scientist and see the language of this mystic and this theologian, and you'll see that there is a lot of commonality between their language and between their worldview. What that takes us to is that there was a great intersection between science and religion, science and spirituality in the Muslim world. So if they can get that unity, we can also revive that unity and have that unity built with the contemporary scientific tradition. And obviously, it has many other benefits. We would be able to better appreciate the Islamic scientific tradition, and I'm going to show you how. So this idea, now it was very important that they viewed the Islamic perspectives of Tawheed, that is divine unity, and cosmic unity, very important that they viewed this is related, and that what gave them the the necessary conclusion of this thought was that if everything is connected to everything else, because everything has one creator, so everything, all of the natural world is created, and by one creator, there has to be an interrelation between everything else. Therefore, they develop theories which are very, very interesting. They are, we can understand them in from the perspective of even evolutionary biology, where they're actually talking about, life cycle and adaptation and common ancestry and stuff like that, which we'll see inshallah in the paper. Now, where were we? Understanding this feature of Islamic science is crucial for various reasons, like the historical survey of Islamic science. We'll actually be able to understand Islamic science and contemporary efforts in the field of science, Islamic science, particularly evolution. So if we can understand how Muslim biologists from the Middle Ages, from the medieval period, could, they understood life, how life exists, how life is related to the divine, then that would help us understanding and navigating our path today with, the current developments in evolution, because everything is connected. You see, it's going in a flow, it's not disconnected. So moving on. Now, this is very important. I'm just going to take you briefly through some of the points in the introduction, and I want your attention. This is extremely important for academic, student, as well as layperson. If you can understand your own tradition, then only can you understand the dilemmas of today. So science, as it is understood today, is defined as a study of the physical world, utilizing certain methods, aiming at a coherent and objective understanding of the natural order without resorting to any metaphysical explanations. That's the definition of science. So we have some methods, we understand the world, but we don't resort to any metaphysical explanation. That's extremely important, that you understand it's a basic fundamental of science which is developed today. And if you can understand that, you will see this is shirk. This is shirk. If you're going to make this a premise, an important premise of the way you understand the world, that we are not going to resort to any metaphysical explanation, that it is not relevant to the world, you're literally divorcing God, who is the metaphysical explanation, from an explanation of the world. You have committed, literally, it is, it's a kind of shirk. It's shirk as in we have associated a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his attribute, which is being the creator, and we say that the creation exists independent of him, and we can even explain it independent of him. So this is an important point here. We have to understand that's how science is practiced. Now, by contrast, in the Muslim world, the word science implied the more generic, all-inclusive Arabic word ulum, or knowledge. It meant all knowledge. So right now also, science, the word science is actually called ulum. So all knowledge. It was very, the term is so generic, knowledge. It meant, and there was a fundamental unity between the different religious, spiritual, physical, and mathematical sciences, as all sprung forth from the same Islamic intellectual milieu. Extremely important. Now we're going to see so many things that we've seen, the characteristics of Islamic science. One of which is that there was an inherent unity between mathematical, physical, religious, spiritual sciences. There were no marked borders, sort of demarcations as such. It was porous. Obviously, there were classifications. These are the different kinds of science. These are the different sources of knowledge, but they weren't in watertight compartments that we're going to see. That due to this inherent unity within these different fields, many times the same method of research was employed throughout these varied sciences. Therefore, we find the scientific spirit first being exhibited in the codification of religious sciences, especially the formulation of fiqh. Extremely important. If we understand that there were different sciences that were developed in the Muslim world, but they weren't kept in these watertight compartments. There was a classification, but the classification was very porous. Many a times the same method was used for different sciences. Why? Let me ask you a question. Why? Was the same method used for different kind of sciences? I'll answer the question, which is that because Muslim scientists understood that all knowledge comes from one source, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore all knowledge must be related. Isn't that beautiful? That they actually find unity in everything. They actually found tawheed in everything. They would say that because all creation is from that one source, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, there should be a connection between every creation. That's one kind of unity, that's cosmic unity. And we're going to see that in their theories of biology, that they actually show that unity. And they don't show like a separation between the living world and the non-living world, which we see right now. We have different disciplines for that, and there isn't much overlap, but in the Muslim world there was. And number two kind of unity that we've seen, that they said, the Muslim scientists, this was an assumption that was taken, that was that because there is all knowledge originally comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore all knowledge should be interrelated. There is no conflict between these different kinds of knowledge. Okay, I'm just going to cover one last bit, and then inshallah in the next session we'll move on. But a question may be asked as what is the reason behind this harmony between varied disciplines like philosophy, religion, and science in the Muslim world in comparison with the tension that exists between them in the Western tradition? Now, what I'm trying to say is obviously there was tension. I'm not saying that there wasn't tension, but the way science and religion is practiced today, how is it practiced today? It's practiced in a way where when you go to an engineering college or medical school, you don't really open a copy of the Quran, and you don't really give a Quranic opinion on a scientific problem. It's just not accepted. Everybody is going to stare at you. What are you saying? So you're studying cosmology, and you're going to open the book and say, quote an ayat from, Surah Tur, let's say, the ayat about the universe. You don't do that because the disciplines are so divided that there's no way that you can unite them. There is no way. Whereas in the Muslim world, there was tension. Obviously, there was tension because, you're talking about different sources of knowledge, and the scholars from these different sources of knowledge, they had their differences, but it wasn't divorced. It wasn't these different sources of knowledge were not kept in watertight compartments, and we're going to see that in the paper. And there was a harmony that Muslim scientists and philosophers actually harmonized between religion and science centuries before. Now we're talking about religion and science. They've done it already. And we're going to see how they did that. And the discussion that we had on cosmic unity, divine unity, and the unity of the sciences actually shows that there was this unification that was characteristic to the Islamic scientific and the Islamic intellectual tradition, all of it, the religious sciences, the physical sciences, as well as the philosophical and the rational sciences. Now, the answer that I give to this question, that why was there this harmony between the varied disciplines? The answer is that Muslims of the medieval period viewed knowledge, like I said, as an integrated holistic enterprise that emerged from a single source. So this unity, this tawheed, is giving them this balance in everything that they're doing. And a beautiful book to read on this. Have I quoted him? Have I quoted him? Yes, there, Faruqi. A beautiful book to read on how tawheed actually influenced Islamic thought and the Islamic civilization, both political, social, intellectual, religious worldviews, and these different traditions, how Tawheed actually shaped them, is a book by Faruqi, Ismail Raji Faruqi, on Tawheed. So I think you can get a free PDF. He's a Shaheed. He died as a martyr, and he was a great scholar. Maybe we can talk about him someday. He did amazing work in the field of the Islamization of science. So you can read that. Just type in Tawheed and Ismail Faruqi PDF. You're going to get that. Maybe I can put it in the description for you all. So this unity of all knowledge is possible only because all knowledge ultimately comes from God. So why do we have this unity which modern science doesn't have? Is because we do understand that all knowledge comes from God, whereas the modern scientific, movement, this revolution that we have right now, the modern scientific tradition that exists right now, doesn't view that unity. So therefore, there are, conflicts. There's conflict even within science. There's conflict between science and philosophy. There is no reconciliation between science and religion, and there's even conflict within science, like the general relativity versus quantum mechanics, or how do you reconcile life versus non-life? So thus man's scientific knowledge as well as knowledge pertaining to the spiritual realm is possible only because God has primordially enabled man to have access to these different sources of knowledge. So this idea, the Quran says in Surah Al-Baqarah that allama Adam al-asma'a kullaha. We taught, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam all of the names. So humanity has literally been given potential knowledge of everything, just like a seed has the potential of becoming the tree. Humanity has the potential of gaining all knowledge that exists about the world and even beyond. So this is the primary premise that Muslim scientists and philosophers had, and that is why they thought all knowledge is unified. Is that it? Okay, so again, it was related to divine unity or tawheed, which is manifest at different levels of reality, namely the physical, the psychical, and the spiritual. But I think I want to discuss this in detail because this is a very important topic and it's very beautiful how Muslim scientists actually viewed Tawheed. Because for us, Tawheed is what? La ilaha illallah. Maybe we do a tasbih of La ilaha illallah and we obviously have it in our salah. But for Muslims of the medieval world, the Islamic intellectual revolution that existed, for them, Tawheed was way more than that. And we can see that in their scientific works. We can see that in their works on economics. We can see that in their understanding of philosophy and how the mind works, how the self works, the classification of knowledge, their epistemology. So Tawheed was way more than that for them. And we want to understand how they saw Tawheed. So maybe, inshallah, in the next session. Till then, thank you.